Hello YouTube, Troz here, and today I'm playing a game that's, it's a game I really like, and it's probably one of the complex and most interesting games you'll likely play on a PC. It's Dwarf Fortress, and if you haven't heard of Dwarf Fortress before, it's hard to describe, but you could kind of say it's SimCity or The Sims meets Rogue, if you know what Rogue is, or a roguelike. If you don't know what Rogue or roguelike is, Rogue is a game that was created back in the late 70s on kind of mainframe computers, and at the time, it was all done with text graphics, ASCII graphics, but it was an adventure game. It's kind of, you could say it's kind of one of the games that led up to games like Diablo, but unlike Diablo, it was all turn-based, such that when you moved, then at the same time all the monsters moved, and you could wait and think as long as you wanted. But it was basically, an action RPG, except it was turn-based. But there was, dungeons to explore and various treasures to get, and there was stores and, different types of monsters and different effects and potions. But the thing with a roguelike is when you died, you died. You could save your game, but when you loaded the game, it would delete the save. And when you died, it obviously, you didn't have a save anymore. And each time you played, there could be a red potion, and it could be a healing potion in one game, but in the next game, it could be a poison potion or something like that. There was also scrolls that you could, see a title of, but, one scroll could be one thing in one game, enchant armor, and the next game it could be curse armor, and the next game it could be a teleport scroll or something like that. And it was basically Rogue and its derivatives that were eventually called roguelikes, were played from a top-down perspective. You would see one level of the dungeon, and you would go through that level and eventually find stairs down to the next level, and basically going further down was progressing in the game. Very popular rogue is called NetHack, and it's still being developed to this day. I think it started NetHack in the late 80s. And there's the versions for PCs and Macs and heck Android and iOS, I'm sure. I know it is on Android. I'm assuming it's on iOS as well. It's not as easy to play. Basically, the one thing with roguelikes is they did use a lot of commands, key commands. So you basically use the arrow keys or your number pad to go in 8 directions, and you would press W to wear armor, Q to quaff or drink a potion, E to equip items, like swords or bows or whatever. Many of these games did have different classes. NetHack definitely has a lot of classes. You could, play it as a wizard or a warrior or, a ranger or a thief. Heck, NetHack even has a tourist where you start off in a Hawaiian shirt and you have a camera whose flash can blind monsters temporarily. They also had a lot of neat effects, there was a monster that could turn players or anything that touched it to stone, but if you were wearing, iron gloves, you could kill the monster and then pick it up and use it as a weapon. Unfortunately, it did have other problems, like you could eventually, there were traps and you could fall through a trap to the next level, but if you were happening to be holding this monster and using it as a weapon, it could wind up landing on you as you fell, and you would turn to stone. So Dwarf Fortress, basically it's a city sim or a town sim or, The Sims sim, but played like a roguelike. Actually, I should qualify that. Dwarf Fortress has 2 modes of play. The main mode, the Dwarf Fortress mode, is like I described it. It's a Sims roguelike. You basically you set off with a group of 7 dwarfs to start a new dwarven settlement, a new dwarf fortress. And you arrive in the spring, and you are basically playing the mind of the leader, and you set about tasks. You decide where to dig, what to grow for food, and the dwarves will do these things, but not necessarily in the order that you say. Basically, if they're hungry, they will, stop what they're doing and go get food if there's food available. If there isn't food available, or drink, because dwarves like their alcohol. If there isn't food available, they'll get mad and start getting sad, and eventually they'll start hunting for mice or rats to eat, and they can throw tantrums and get mad at other dwarfs and start fighting, and you don't want that to happen. Causes lots of problems and lots of fun. And when I say fun, you should know that one of the Dwarf Fortress's mottos is losing is fun, because you will be doing it a lot. You will hopefully learn from your fun and know how to or try something different or better next time. But basically, yeah, the game is a lot of learning by losing, but it's also very interesting. I did mention the first method of playing Dwarf Fortress is as in this running a fortress mode. There is also a full roguelike in Dwarf Fortress. You can play as an adventurer, and you can start in a town and get a few quests from the mayor of the town, and then move on to other towns, defeating local bad guys, or a troll or things like that. And Dwarf Fortress has a very deep combat system. You don't get to see it that much in the Fortress mode, although there are large battle reports. But you do get it more exposed to it in the Adventurer mode. And you can, do attacks that will cut tendons or nerves and render limbs, unusable in the enemies. You can do all sorts of wrestling moves like, arm locks and leg locks, and disable opponents that way, or break their arms or limbs. And it contains kind of correct anatomy. You can shoot an arrow and it can be stopped by armor, or it can go through and get stopped in the flesh, or hit a bone, or actually manage to go through a rib cage into a heart and into the lungs, or perhaps miss certain organs, or cause internal bleeding. So the adventure mode, it is pretty interesting. It isn't played as much, but it does have some very interesting things. I should say this game, it's kind of old and not. It was started. Actually, it was started as early as in 2002, but it was developed on and off until 2006, where the first version was released. I actually did play it back when it was first released, and I have been playing it on and off since then. It has been being developed full-time since then. Right now, this is version 0.34.11, which actually was released over a year ago. Basically, what has been happening, the game is only programmed by one guy, Tarn Adams, or he goes by Toady1. It was designed by him and his brother, and they continue to design it and build it. They basically get it to a point where it works pretty good, and then they come up with a whole big new system to add, and they work on that for a while, adding the new system. So I believe they are doing improvements right now, mostly in the adventure mode, but they do have their effects in the fortress mode as well. But yeah, it basically has been maybe one major release a year, with several bug fixes. Like 0.34 came out, and they made 11 different updates over a course of maybe a few months, and then they went back into new feature mode, and they do post updates regularly on the website, which is Bay 12 Games. I'll link it below. But let's get into a game. The games are persistent in that you create a world, which I'll be doing right now. It basically randomly generates a world. And here's just a warning that it is alpha, but it's been a very playable alpha for a long time. They're suggesting you visit dwarffortresswiki.org, which basically this game is sort of like Minecraft. You wouldn't think of playing Minecraft without using the wiki. Like, if you didn't know how to make a pick or a shovel or a torch, Minecraft would be very hard to play. And this game is sort of the same way. If you don't know the correct commands, there's a menu that does show you all the commands, but some of the commands are hidden in menus and a little hard to figure out at first. So not knowing the right commands makes this game very hard to play. So they definitely recommend, and I recommend, using the wiki if you don't know how to do something. So I'm going to make a world that's relatively easy to play in. So I am making the history shorter. That's just I think that generates like 200 years of history. You can adjust how long the history is. There'll be more or less notable civilizations or notable events or notable people with a shorter history. It doesn't really affect anything else. I'm making the savagery low, which means there'll be fewer dangerous monsters, because there are terrible beasts, not really Godzilla-like things, but yes, Godzilla-like things. There's trolls or things like that go around the world, and there'll be less of them with their less natural savagery. And I'm increasing the mineral currents, not setting it all the way up, but basically, at first, when your biggest problem at first in the game is surviving the first winter. Once you do survive the first winter, you're definitely going to want metals to start up a smithing, making swords and armor, because there are dangers below if you dig too greedily and too deep. There are also dangers without, as your fortress becomes more popular. There will be invaders who will want to take some of your wealth, and so you'll definitely want a small standing army with good swords and good armor, and having more minerals, more iron, more coal, more stuff like that definitely helps. So I'm going to hit go here, and it's going to start creating a world. I am using the Lazy Noob pack. Music you should be hearing is part of that. Lazy Noob pack basically combines Dwarf Fortress with a few utilities. You see we already have the world generated. It's a little piece of the world. You see roads being built as history progresses, doing about a year a second. But the Lazy Noob pack adds in a texture pack. As I said, the game is basically ASCII initially, although it's technically not really ASCII. It also adds in some extra utilities, and one I'm using right now is Sound Sense, which adds sounds to the game. Otherwise, it's just basically just a music track and no real sounds at all. Another thing that is definitely useful to use, but I'm not using it, is something called Stone Sense, which instead of giving you a top-down view, well, the game gives you a top-down view. Stone Sense gives you kind of a isometric 3/4 perspective view, and shows a few layers. I think it's maybe 3 or 4. It may be configurable. Probably is configurable. So if there's a hill, you can actually kind of see the side of the hill and what's on it much easier than you can. So it looks like we have finished. I guess I was wrong. It's 125 years. I know some of the original versions did 1,000 years of history. The original versions of Dwarf Fortress, that took 20 minutes. In addition to, there would be many tries at terrain that would get rejected for one reason or another. that seems, to have been approved. There was only apparently 2 rejects. So I'm gonna just hit P here to export the whole world as an image. Let me post that somewhere. I can, little X is your cursor here. You can pan around. But I'm now just gonna say accept, and it will save, and this will actually take a long while because it basically everything it generated in the history, all the events, battles that took place, all the historical figures that came up, they're all being recorded to disk, which I'll load up in a second. And hopefully this is not responding right now, but that's normal, I guess. It's not the most efficiently written game. It definitely has been improved from some of its early versions. Okay, now you see we're back at the main menu, but now we have start playing. I should note that you can see some of the letters look a little funny, and that's because they are used for other graphical purposes in the game, so they were kind of modified to fit better in those locations. So I'm going to, you can play Dwarf Fortress, you can play Adventure, and you can play kind of Legends, which just lets you look at the legends that were generated. I'm going to play Dwarf Fortress. You can see we have Region 1 right now. You can create more worlds, and they'll be called Region 2, Region 3, etc. You can, after you die, or your fortress, if you die in Adventure, or if your fortress gets overrun, you can continue playing in the same world. You'll start like 1 year after. You can revisit the same fortress in Adventurer mode, or kind of send a band of people to retake your previous fortress in Dwarf Fortress mode. So the first thing we have to do is pick a site, and I have the window set to be 720p. Normally it's wider than it is tall. And the world view would be a square. The world view right now, you can see this is basically 3 maps. The local view is 3 maps, 3 different scales. The world view is the whole world. It should be square or very close to square, but because I have my window kind of not sized properly, how the game normally has it, it's kind of stretched it out taller. But basically, where the blinking X is in the world view is the region I'm looking at in the region view here, and then the blinking X in the region is where the local view is, and right now there's a 3x3 square of where I can play chosen, and I can move that around using U, J, H, and K, or I can hold Shift and I would resize it to be bigger or smaller. Actually, it's U, M, H, and K. But there's lots of things you want to consider. What did I do? Oh, I think I hit N for notes. Oh well. So I'd like to find a nice location, because there's things you do want and there's things you don't want. I'm gonna say the location can be 4x4. I want low savagery, low evil. I don't care about the elevation or the temperature really, or the rain, or the drainage. I do want flux-stone. Basically, to make steel, you need iron, you need coal, and you need a flux-stone that is put in and becomes part of the steel. I don't want an aquifer. An aquifer is a layer of soil that has water in it, and it becomes very hard to dig through. And because of that, you have risk of flooding all the time, and it's just a pain. I do want a river, because water is something that is nice to have. Depending on the temperature, there could be lakes, but if it gets really hot, the lakes can dry up. So having a river will never dry up. I do want shallow metals, and multiple would be really nice. I do want deep metals, and multiple is really nice. I would like some soil. I'll put some instead of little. You kind of need soil to grow crops, but you're dwarfs, so you generally, you live underground, and you can grow mushrooms and stuff like that, but you still need soil. And I don't really care about clay, but it's nice to have. Something else is nice to have is sand, because you can start making glass, but I don't know how to set that. Clay, you can make clay pottery. So I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna hit enter here, and it's going to start searching. The red X's is where it has found, or it has looked already. You can see the best matches so far. Red means it hasn't found something that matches that yet. So this will just quickly search through the whole, or maybe not so quickly, but search through the whole world. One thing you can note here in the world map is the bottom area is kind of blue. That means it's kind of tundra or snowy. I'm not sure if the world is supposed to represent a whole world or just part of a world. Generally, you'll have a snowy or tundra area on either the south or the north, so I'm not sure if it's supposed to represent a hemisphere or something like that. But it looks like we're done searching, and it puts us on the best match. So I'm going to hit escape, and I'm going to hit F to clear the find results, which will stop the blinking. There we go. So here we are. Kind of sort of on the coast of a big continent here. Looks like we're at the edge of or the beginning of a little river. It's warm. There's no trees. There's moderate vegetation, and it's calm. The brook is called Wild Nester. There's shallow metals, deep metals, and fluxstone. There are two biomes here. So if I press F1, this blinking area is the one biome that has no trees. And there is another biome that is a freshwater marsh. Never played in a marsh, but it does have trees. We only have one block on it. It has clay and it has a little soil. I think we want more of that. So I'm going to move our selected area one block to the right. So we still have two biomes. You can actually get 3 or 4 biomes, but this particular location only has 2. So we still have a little bit of river. That should be enough for water. We have more trees now, though. Although it's marsh, I'm not sure if that will cause any problems. There was one version where certain rivers had carp in them, and carp were known to eat dwarfs whole. So I'm not sure if that's going to be an issue. I don't think it will be. Carp have been brought under control. Some of the first versions, elephants were the problem. But this looks to be good to me. So I am going to embark to this area, and let me hit tab here. Looks like there are goblins in the area, but there's always goblins in the area. Looks like the nearest civilization is the Shady Groves. I believe it automatically picks the closest dwarf civilization, and so your adventures will be from there. We can see relative elevations here, so obviously the river area is low, and it kind of goes up to the northeast, which is where the trees will be. And you can see cliff indicators here. Basically, right where the water is flat. There's no cliffs, but then it's relatively steep until you get to the treed area, where it flattens out a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to embark to this location. And this is just a little warning that I made the area a little larger, and it may slow the game down, but one of the other things you need to do is pick your dwarfs and your equipment. And you basically start off with a certain number of points, and adding skills to the dwarfs or adding equipment that you'll bring with you will lower the number of points. Lazy Noob Pack adds some of these presets, and you can make up your own. But I'm just going to go with the simple start for new players. Alright, not sure what happened there. Probably, now, these are all the skills. So here's this first Dwarf Sodel, and he's a proficient miner and a proficient mason, and you can assign all these different skills. For dwarfs to do things, they need workshops that need to be built, and basically there's lots of different skills. And so our first dwarf is a miner and mason, or will be. Our second dwarf is a miner and a mechanic, and mechanics make mechanism, little gear things that are used to build traps. Our next guy is a miner and a bone carver, and while I do like, the fourth guy is a woodcutter and a carpenter. Our fifth guy, brewer, a cook, and a novice butcher and tanner. So he will be doing the meals. Next guy is basically a grower, and you need someone with a little bit of building designer skill, because you do have to make a trade depot, and that takes some building designing skill. He's also a organizer and record keeper. You do need a kind of manager who keeps track of all your stocks. Looks like this guy is going to be the trader because he has a little bit of appraisal and judge of intent skill, but he also is a building designer and a grower. So back to our bone carver. One of the things you do need to trade, and one of the things you trade is crafts. Little toys or things made out of the leftover rock you have from digging out your home. Generally, you can also make it bone carving or wood crafts. I'm actually going to remove a few skill points and put them in stone crafting. You can see as how many skills is listed next to the dwarf's name. How many points it costs to add the skill is next to the skill name. So I'm gonna go with stone crafting. That's what I know best. Now I press tab, and here's the things you're gonna take with us. We're taking 3 copper picks. Plump helmets are a type of mushrooms that dwarfs love to eat, and we're taking 30 of their seeds. A nest box, we're taking 4 of them, because on the side we're also taking some animals, and I believe we yes, 2 hens and 2 geese we'll be taking with us, as well as some dogs that can be used for hunting or trained in battle, war dogs. And cats are useful because they chase mice and insects, roaches and stuff like that, and keep your fortress clean like that. We're taking 20 actual plump helmets to eat until we can get our farms going. Taking a training axe, that was part of this. I'm gonna take a real axe, I think. We got 55 units of wine, 55 units of rum. Got some granite, and I mean, that could be used to get our economy going by, well, maybe not economy, but getting prepared for trading by building some crafts until we have enough rock of our own. And we got 20 logs, so we do have some points left over here. So I am going to add, probably what was done was chosen some sort of cheap meat, which depending on where you're sitting out from may not have been available, so that's what that warning probably was, that we weren't really prepared. So I'm going to take, and just now hit plus on it. This was pretty cheap points wise, and then I am going to take a copper battle axe, which can be used for cutting down trees, and that mostly uses up all my points. I think we're good here. I am going to go hit embark, and we are going to set off.
A new land for our kingdom, a land flowing with milk and booze.
Alright, so we have arrived after a long journey from the mountain homes into the forbidding wilderness beyond. Your harsh trek has finally ended. Your party of 7 is to make an outpost for the glory of all of Ashmorneg. There's almost no supplies left, but with the stout labor comes sustenance, whether by bolt or by plow or hook, provided for your dwarves. You're expecting a supply caravan just before winter entombs you, but it is spring now, enough time to delve in secure lodgings ere the alligators get hungry. Ooh, hints that there are alligators in the area. A new chapter of dwarven history begins here at this place. Megormol, Lashpeg, strike the earth. You can actually name your group and your city if you want, or you can just go with the year randomly generated. So I'm going to click here, and we're going to get into the game proper. There we go. Enter apparently is the right key. And just waiting around here for it to draw properly. Any minute now. Here we are. Okay, so the game is paused right now. You can tell that by the upper left corner where it says paused. This is the main screen, and it's split into 3 sections, but I don't normally play this way. On the far right is a overhead map. This is basically the 4x4 area that I selected initially, and it's split into layers. So on the far left edge, you can see down at the not left edge, right edge. I think that says 145. It's kind of covered partially by my recording software. But we're on layer 145, and the higher the number, the further the elevation, so you can go further and further up. Right now, you can see at the very top of the right edge it says 0, which means we're looking at the current ground level. I can hold shift and press comma and period, which really gets you greater than or less than, and that will increase or decrease our level. So I'm pressing greater than right now, and it's moving us up. You can see... actually, sorry. That is down. So, you can see it's now fully the overhead map on the right edge. It fully shows kind of stone. It means we're underground. In fact, if you notice at the right edge at the top, it says 7. We're 7 layers underground. You can see the yellow X is kind of where we are, and kind of the other blocks just south of it are tinted blue. That means our dwarfs are there. You can see there's at kind of the left edge of the map, there's a red tinted block, and that means there's some other creature there. Not underground, but in that location somewhere vertically. So I'm gonna now start moving up, and we can see on the overhead map, you can see kind of stone and the edge of the river, and then you see it turn blue, which means, hey, that's now air. But you can see where there's kind of stone edge of the hill, and as you move up, it kind of moves back as topographical wood, and you can see, there's some kind of grasses, and you can see on the left side, there's a little depression where we're looking right now, where there's grass, and the little triangles indicate those are upward slopes. So it's kind of a little depression in the hill, and if I go up another layer, you can see it's kind of flat. You can see where the depression is. You can you can see sorts of things here. There's little dwarfs and a goose and hens and a barrel and a kind of grayish looking 3x3 square that a barrel and a dog and a cat is on is our wagon. There's some dwarfs there. They look like little minor ones, and there's other ones that look like farmers, and then there's one who's kind of yellow, and he's our carpenter. I'll show you in a minute, but there's different icons depending on what the dwarf's job is. I can continue going up, and now you kind of see blue where the depression is, and kind of the next layer down is just kind of ground, except you can sort of see where the rocks are. You can sort of see a tree or two on the upper elevation. Going back to the main map, you can kind of see there's a few lakes, and if I keep going up there, we eventually get to the top of where, at least this part of the hill. I'll move over on the world map. You can see on the X, in the zoomed in version, there's some trees and some bushes with berries and stuff. As we go down, more layers, and here's some of those little lakes, or ponds you could probably call them, because they aren't that big. You can, where the ground meets the slope, you can see different materials, and I'll show you in just a second how to tell what those materials actually are. Here we are at the area with the river, and if I actually unpause it, you actually do get animation where like the little white crests kind of move. If I go one layer further down, you can see the river is kind of cutting into the ground, and the 7s indicate the depth. There's 7, basically water depth is, or fluid depth, because there's actually magma as well, but the depth can be up to 7 in a single spot. So I actually don't like playing like this view, or this layout I should say. I'll put it back and I'll just hit tab, and you can change the layout a bunch, but I like having the menu on the right and a bigger view of the local area. So there's a few well, there's lots of key commands but the important commands, the meaning of the word key is K, which is look, and it puts a cursor on your local area that you move around with the arrow keys, and you basically, whatever it's on, you get told exactly what it is. Here we have a claystone boulder, and we have Kidvish the miner, Thinkoot miner, Rith planter, and we got a expedition leader is here underneath the chicken. You can see it actually kind of spirals between the two. If two things are occupying the same location, they kind of will alternate. We have a hen here as well, and there's claystone floor. You can also look at the walls. This is clay loam, but only the exposed walls. Like, you can't tell what's in the middle here. But so this kind of reddish is the clay loam. Here's claystone, so it's kind of clay that's been hardened into stone. More claystone. This blue is microline, which is a bluish rock. Anything with an asterisk on it is it's basically a metal ore. This is hematite, which I used to know offhand what some of these were. This is opal, so that's a little gemstone embedded, and you can mine out the gemstone and polish it and make jewelry. Here's a little indented part, and we got magnetite. Now, magnetite sounds like magnet, and it actually is an ore of iron. So this is important. So we want a couple of things. We do want some actual soil. Clay loam is a soil, so we can dig into that and make a farm. Digging through soil goes a lot quicker than digging through stone, but digging through soil doesn't leave any rock that you can then later use for other purposes. So basically, your next step is to plan. Your first step is to plan your initial fortress. You're going to need a few things. You're going to need some space inside for holding things you produce. You're going to need a barracks, or not a dormitory. It used to be called a barracks. You can still make a barracks, but they're now reserved for military. But you need a room for your dwarfs to sleep in, because they get very unhappy sleeping on the floor. You're going to need some place to grow crops, and you're going to need a few initial workshops to produce beds and doors, which basically means a carpenter shop, masonry shop, and you kind of want your craft dwarf shop up early so they can start making crafts that you'll need to trade in the fall. It is the first of spring right now, though. You need a few things outside as well. You need some place to put your trash, because it will start rotting, and if it's inside, it will cause a smell that will sicken your dwarfs. So you set up a refuse pile outside, and you might as well set up a graveyard as well. Not because you expect your dwarfs to die, but if your cats, kill little insects or rodents or stuff, those bodies are brought out to the graveyard as well, I think. Or maybe the refuse pile. Maybe it's the refuse pile. But definitely if you get some invaders, their bodies are brought to the graveyard. But that may be done in my next video. This is starting to get a little long. But that's how you set up the game. One thing I didn't mention is if you do use a Lazy New pack, they do have a launcher, and it does launch a few additional windows, but many of them can be ignored. But thanks for watching, and in the next video, I will show how I start, at least typically. So, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.